It was a cold Friday morning, October 12th, 2007. A day etched into my memory forever. Because that was the day my mother looked me in the eye and said, "You'll never succeed. You'll never be more than a failure." Now, pause for a second. Imagine hearing that from the one person who's supposed to believe in you the most. Sounds painful, right? For me, it wasn't just painful. It was a curse that followed me for years. I'm the kind of person you'd call the forgotten one, the family joke, the one people whisper about at dinners. He's going nowhere. But what none of them knew was that one day, I'd flip that script in the most brutal way possible. And when I finally signed a $10 million deal, let's just say, silence never sounded so sweet. But hey, before I take you deep into this twisted story of doubt, betrayal, and sweet revenge, hit that like button and subscribe. Because trust me, by the end, you'll never forget this ride. You know, people assume success is a straight road. Like you just work hard and boom, it happens. Yeah, not for me. My road, it was full of potholes, detours, and let's be honest, moments where I wanted to crash the car completely. Back then, my mother's words became this shadow I couldn't escape. Every failure, every rejection, I'd hear her voice again. "You'll never succeed." It was like she was living rent-free in my head. And trust me, she wasn't even paying utilities, school. I was never the golden child. I wasn't failing, but I wasn't shining either. My brother got straight A's. My sister, she was the family pride. And me? I was the kid who barely scraped by. Family dinners always felt like interrogation rooms. "So what's your plan?" they'd ask. I had no answer. And you could almost hear my mom's sigh cutting through the room like a knife. Then came the jobs. Oh boy. I jumped from one dead-end gig to another, selling cell phones, stocking shelves, delivering pizzas. Each one ended the same way. Me broke, frustrated, and another lecture from Mom. She didn't even yell anymore. She'd just shake her head. Sometimes silence hurts more than words, you know? There were nights I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was right. Maybe I was a failure. Maybe I'd always be the punchline in someone else's story. And here's the thing. When you're constantly told you can't do something, part of you starts to believe it. That's the real trap. Not the failure itself, but the belief that you'll never rise above it. But here's where it gets interesting. Because while I was drowning in doubt, there was this small, stubborn voice inside me whispering, "What if she's wrong?" Just 4 words, but they became my fuel. Still, at that time, I was nowhere close to success. I had more bills than dollars, more rejections than friends, and honestly, more fear than hope. Yet something inside me refused to give up completely. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was revenge, or maybe it was just sheer desperation. Whatever it was about to push me into the fight of my life. You ever hit that point where life feels like it's laughing at you? Yeah, I hit it hard. It was 2011. I was working this lousy sales job, barely making enough to keep the lights on. My rent was overdue, my car had broken down again, and my fridge, let's just say it was emptier than a politician's promise. Then came the worst blow. I remember walking into my mother's house one evening. She didn't even greet me. She just looked up from her chair, shook her head and said, "I don't know why you even bother. You're wasting your life." That one cut deeper than all the others. Because in that moment, I wasn't just a failure in her eyes. I started believing I was a failure in mine. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, I felt crushed. I had no money, no plan, no direction. And the thought crossed my mind, maybe she's right. Maybe it would be easier to quit. I don't mean just quit my dreams. I mean quit everything. Life. Scary thought, huh? But that's the truth. I was on the edge, staring into the dark, wondering if there was even a reason to keep going. And here's where the story could have ended. Me, another forgotten soul, swallowed by the world. But then, something snapped. As I sat there in the silence, I remembered those 4 words again. What if she's wrong? It was like a spark in the middle of a blackout. Tiny, fragile, but powerful enough to pull me back. I made a decision that night. If I was going to go down, I was going to go down swinging. No more pity, no more excuses. If the world thought I was worthless, fine. I'd use that as fuel, and that decision, that single desperate choice in the middle of my darkest night, became the start of something bigger than I ever imagined. You know, movies love to show that big moment where the hero decides to change, and suddenly everything falls into place. Hate to break it to you. Real life doesn't work like that. The night I chose not to quit wasn't the night I became successful. It was the night I became stubborn. And trust me, there's a difference. I started small. I picked up every book I could find about business, sales, marketing, My apartment turned into a library mixed with a crime scene. Coffee stains everywhere, papers scattered, sticky notes on the walls like I was hunting down a suspect. The only suspect was my own laziness. Days became nights, nights became mornings. I worked through exhaustion, sometimes fueled only by instant noodles and cheap coffee. Funny thing? Those noodles tasted like five-star meals when I felt like I was actually learning something. But progress wasn't glamorous. I tried starting a few side hustles, failed miserably. One idea flopped so badly I lost the last $800 in my account. I laughed at myself that night. What else could I do? Crying wasn't going to refill my bank account. Still, every failure taught me something. Every rejection was a free lesson. Well, free is a lie, because it cost me money, time, and pride. But it was worth it. I forced myself to network. And let me tell you, walking into rooms where everyone's wearing sharp suits while you're in your one good shirt from Walmart, yeah, that builds character real quick. People ignored me, brushed me off, even laughed in my face. But I kept showing up. Slowly I started landing small deals. A $200 gig here, a $500 project there. Nothing life-changing, but it was proof that I wasn't worthless. Proof that maybe, just maybe, I could build something. And here's the part nobody tells you. Momentum is addicting. The more small wins I stacked, the more my confidence grew. It was like climbing a staircase in the dark. I couldn't see the top, but I knew I was moving up. Of course, my mother didn't see it that way. Every time I visited, she'd say things like, "Don't waste your time. Get a real job." Sometimes I wanted to scream. Other times, I just stayed quiet, letting her words burn inside me, fueling the fire. There was one night, 2 a.m., laptop open, my eyes barely staying awake, when I whispered to myself, "One day, you'll see. One day I'll show you." And slowly, painfully, that whisper started becoming real. The contacts grew, the projects got bigger, the money came in. Not millions yet, but enough to prove I was finally onto something. But here's the kicker. Success isn't a straight climb. Just when you think you're rising, life throws another punch, and I was about to get hit with the kind of opportunity that could either make me or break me completely. Opportunity doesn't knock politely. It kicks down the door when you least expect it. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday afternoon in 2016. I got a call from a guy I'd met at a networking event months earlier. Honestly, I barely remembered him, but his words still ring in my ears. "I might have something big for you. Can you handle it?" My heart skipped. Big? How big? I didn't let the fear show. I just said, "Send me the details." That night, when I opened the email, my hands actually trembled. It wasn't some small project. This was a corporate deal, a monster. The kind of contract that could drag me straight to bankruptcy, or launch me into a different world. For 3 days, I barely slept. I studied every angle, every risk, every number. My apartment looked like a war room. Charts, graphs, notes taped on the walls. I wasn't preparing for a meeting. I was preparing for battle. And then came the pitch day. I walked into that boardroom wearing the same suit I'd worn to 5 other failed presentations. Only difference? This time, I wasn't the same man. The room was cold. Executives stared at me, half bored, half doubtful. My mouth was dry. For a second, I thought I might choke. And then, I remembered my mother's words. "You'll never succeed." Funny how the same words that once broke me now pushed me forward. So I spoke, confident, clear, like my life depended on it, because honestly, it did. I laid out the plan, the numbers, the vision. I could see their eyes shift. First skeptical, then curious, then locked in. After what felt like hours, the room went silent. One of them leaned back and said, "We'll move forward." I walked out of that building numb, like I'd just walked away from a car crash, and somehow survived. A week later, the paperwork was signed. That contract, it wasn't small. It wasn't even big. It was life-changing. The total value? $10 million. And in that moment, the boy who was once the family joke became the man who proved them all wrong. They say revenge is sweet, but for me, it was complicated. Because the person I wanted to prove wrong wasn't some enemy, wasn't some stranger. It was my own mother. The day after I signed that deal, I drove straight to her house. I still remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My heart was pounding harder than it did in that boardroom. I walked in. She was sitting in her usual chair, TV playing some boring soap opera. She looked up at me, expression flat. "You look tired," she said. Same old voice, same old tone. For a moment, I almost froze. The little boy in me wanted to shrink, to sit quietly, to avoid another lecture. But I wasn't that boy anymore. I sat across from her, slid the papers onto the table and said, "Mom, I just closed a deal. A $10 million deal. Her face didn't move at first. Just silence. Long, heavy silence. Then her hand shook a little as she reached for the papers. She scanned the first page, then the second. And for the first time in my life, I saw something in her eyes I never expected. Tears. She whispered, You really did it." That moment was surreal. The woman who told me I'd never succeed, now staring at proof that I had. Part of me wanted to scream, "See? I told you! I proved you wrong!" But instead, I stayed quiet, because the truth is, I didn't succeed just to prove her wrong. I succeeded because I proved myself right. She finally looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "I was hard on you because I was afraid you'd never make it. I didn't want you to get hurt." It wasn't an apology, not really, but it was the closest I'd ever get. And for me, that was enough. We sat there in silence, both of us realizing something. Her doubt had once crushed me, but it had also fueled me. And now, sitting in that room, I felt something I'd never felt before. Peace. You know, looking back now, I realized something. Success wasn't really about the money. It wasn't about the $10 million deal, or even about proving my mother wrong. It was about fighting the voice inside my head that kept saying, "You can't, and I'll be real with you." That voice doesn't just disappear. Even today, it whispers. When I start something new, when I step into uncharted territory, it tries to creep back in. The difference is, now I know how to answer it. So let me ask you something. Who's telling you that you can't? A parent? A boss? Maybe it's even you, right there in your own head. Here's the truth. The people who doubt you don't define you. Their words are heavy, yes, but they're not chains unless you choose to wear them. I learned that every rejection, every failure, every sleepless night, they weren't signs that I was finished. They were tests, and if you're listening to this right now, maybe life is testing you too. But don't give up. Don't quit just because someone else wrote your ending before you even started. Your story isn't finished yet. Remember this. Pain can break you, or it can build you. And the choice? That's always yours. So when someone tells you, "You'll never succeed," smile. Because one day, if you keep pushing, if you keep grinding, you'll have your own version of a $10 million deal. And when that day comes, trust me, silence will sound sweeter than anything you've ever heard. So here I am today, the same person my mother once wrote off as a lost cause, now standing on the other side of a $10 million deal. But let me tell you something important. The money wasn't the victory. The real victory was proving to myself that failure wasn't final. That doubt wasn't destiny. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. Success doesn't arrive with a golden invitation. It comes through rejection, pain, late nights, and moments where you want to quit. The question is, will you push through those moments or let them define you? I faced my darkest nights, my harshest critics, and my deepest fears. And somehow, step by step, I turned them into fuel. If I can do it, so can you. Now, before you click away, I want to leave you with this thought. Imagine the look on the face of the one person who said you'd never make it, when you finally prove them wrong. Feels good, doesn't it? That moment is waiting for you. So if you believe your story isn't finished yet, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, all it takes is one story to remind us that the ending isn't written. And yours? Yours might just be bigger than you ever imagined.